Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the episode 2 of the BRM BrownBag session of APAC region. I am joined by eminent panelists Malini, Jayaganesh from Australia, Avinash from Delhi, India. Welcome, guys. How are you doing today?
Hey, great, Suresh. Good morning. Good afternoon. Yeah.
Good. So,
good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the BRM capability. How can they address some of the kind of challenges that we're going to talk about? But before we start that, let me hand it over to Avinash to talk about some of the challenges that you have seen in organizations.
Sure. Thank you, Suresh. I think some of the common challenges that as practicing consultants that we come across is definitely one of the key challenges is how they can be digital transformation ready. I think they're driving a digital revolution amongst their organizations, and it's an industry vertical kind of a horizontal kind of a challenge right now. How they can drive the digital transformation, beat the competition hands down, right? That's one of the challenges come objectives that I've come across. The second challenge probably would be more revolving around the technology front, or I think the technical mindset that individuals have while solving business problems. So and third is towards more the time to market or the velocity bit of it, right? So how quickly we can roll out our services and products in the market and beat the competition. But I think the best part about this discussion is that we have a practicing BRM in our panel, right? And Malini, I think if we ask the same question pertaining to these three challenges, and Suresh, please feel free to add on as well. If you look at these three challenges, and as a practicing BRM, what is your viewpoint on how adding the BRM adoption within the organization can address these three challenges of digital transformation readiness, dissolving the technology mindset, and becoming more business centric, and third is improving the velocity and the time to market of the organization, be it an internal partner or an external partner. Please.
Avinash, in response to all the challenges that you said, the common denominators, if you like, are firstly that IT needs to cultivate a very deep understanding of business. So the way the BRM capability can aid this is that when you have people who are assigned to the BRM function, one of the primary things that they actually do, like I would say the bread and butter part of our job, is to embed ourselves, in the business units, so that we actually get to really understand what are the priorities, what are the pain points, what are their aspirations, and slowly and surely start influencing that. So when we talk about digital transformation, what from the perspective of the IT provider, if you like, the intention is to aim for convergence between business strategy and IT strategy. So we no longer want to actually come up with a separate IT strategy that lags behind business strategy. We want to participate in those conversations where business strategy is formulated, and we want to shape that. Right? We want to make sure that IT capabilities are considered when business strategy is formulated. So the BRM role, the BRM is the person that would actually ensure that there's an IT presence at all those right conversations. Now, what happens is, in my experience, you don't immediately when you show up, and you say, look, I'm the IT business relationship manager. That doesn't immediately gain you entry to those very strategic conversations. Okay. So what you have to do, initially is to just go listen and really try and understand the context within which the broader organization is operating, and bring that intelligence back to IT, so that IT can actually ensure that it is gearing up its capabilities, to deliver because there's often, like, even though the aspiration is that we should participate in digital transformation, etc., the reality is a lot of the challenges we face are very much at the day-to-day operational level. So bringing that intelligence back, bring that understanding of business aspirations back to IT helps IT actually work out what capabilities does it need to have, right? So that again, so it's a two-way thing. So on the one hand, we are improving our understanding of the business. On the other hand, we are actually improving the capability of IT to participate and respond to business needs, etc. So that positions the IT provider as a strategic partner. So the BRM has a really critical role to play in that.
Sure. My take on that would be, look at shadow IT. Today, a lot of times what happens is IT loses its value because people say that it takes so long time to deliver something. I can go to a Dropbox, I can go something outside. So what I also see is how to profess the value of internal IT. It's also very important because they don't have their confidence to go back to the business to say that we're doing a great job. So it would be important for the BRMs or someone who could tell what's the value of IT, so that they will be able to manage that expectations better as well. So I'm also looking at within the internal IT aspects to lift the image of the IT to deliver business value.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Suresh. I completely concur with the point that you addressed and what point Malini mentioned about. I think somewhere down the line, the internal IT function or the internal IT provider is taken for granted for most of the activities that they do. And that's what normally we say. We do a lot of we do a lot of amazing work for our internal business partners, but we just have one bad day, and I think the entire reputation for the rest of the 364 days goes for a toss. That's where probably the BRM capability can be, or the adoption of BRM would be able to articulate the value delivered to the internal customers or internal partners, as we call it in the BRM vocab, much more precisely, and then we'll be able to kind of move up the ladder in terms of the perceived value. Yeah. Absolutely. Fantastic points. Great. Good.
So in terms of the challenges that we talked about, what does BRM BOK even talk about in terms of capability? Because does it mean that the BRM could be a magic wand that they can address all these challenges, or what elements of that we need to kind of think about that could address these challenges? I mean, any thoughts?
It's a very good question. I think if you look at the BRM BOK, and it has been developed with a very specific focus of adopting a wholesome BRM capability within the organization. So although it dwells a lot on the business relationship manager role, which Malini is playing right now in the ecosystem and in our organization, but at the same time, it also provides on certain competencies as a role and as an organization, as an internal partner or internal provider function that we should focus on. Something like portfolio management, for that matter, or business IQ, right? I think without delving too much into the BRM body of knowledge, because we'll be talking about them in the upcoming episodes, but these are the things. So portfolio management, strategic partnering, and I think they kind of link up to other best practices as well. So I think one point we also want to bring home as a part of this podcast is that BRM is not a standalone body of knowledge when you look at it from an adoption perspective. It adds on, and it kind of is a force multiplier to the existing IT best practices or that you're adopting in your organization as well. Yeah, Suresh, that's my viewpoint. Yeah, please, Suresh, your viewpoint and Malini's as well.
Yeah, I think on Malini, on this particular part, is it not restricted only with IT? Because we've been so much towards IT part of it, but the BRM as a capability should move beyond IT. So give me some examples from a government perspective without IT, other business partners, how do we get it across to be done? Because I want to go away from the world of IT. We have been in IT for a whole lot of time. So can you just throw some perspective outside IT?
Yeah, just one point, Suresh. Are you talking about the other functions such as HR or...
Right, exactly. That's right.
Instead of the sectors, we are trying to talk more about the business functions, right? If I get it right.
That's true.
Okay, perfect. So Malini, I think it's more about the business functions that we have. rather than the sectors. That is what my thought flow is. Yeah, please.
So I think, irrespective of whether it is IT or finance or procurement or HR, the BRM body of knowledge, the capabilities that it identifies, actually applies to all of these, right? Or any of these for that matter. And what we're saying is, for all these typical, what have in the past been back office functions, clumped together as corporate functions, they are all realizing more and more that they need to actually build business IQ, and that they shouldn't be seen as being separate from the business, that they need to be part and parcel of the business. So in I think what the BRM body of knowledge, body of knowledge provides, as an extension to what Avinash said, about strategic partnering and portfolio management, it also provides the, sort of two bookends to good BRM practice. So one is the focus on demand shaping. So how do we actually shape, surface, and stimulate demand for these services? And the other, at the other end is, how do we actually ensure that there is appropriate focus maintained on value, right? While we are actually providing, delivering these services, how do we actually ensure that value is not lost? We refer again and again in the body of knowledge to value leakage. And it's more than just ensuring that value is not lost. It's also ensuring that the value that is produced is actually appropriately used and also recognized.
Okay. Suresh, yeah. So Suresh, just one point that you have raised a very, very critical point over here. I think one of the myths that as you rightly pointed out, is that it's not only meant for IT, right? We'll be talking about it. So in and you're an eminent consultant in terms of spreading the BRM awareness across the globe and adopting it. Have you come across organizations which have kind of looked at it from a non-IT per se and adopted it in a non-IT environment as well? Be it in a function or be it a procurement function?
Yeah, we have been doing consulting with some organizations which are into a commodity trading company. Okay. We've done it with merchandising company. So their ability of the business goals remains the same, increase profitability, time to market. But until otherwise the every business functions are all enabled, they cannot do that. So a common convergence part is to have certain kind of overall understanding of business IT, first to start with alignment, then the convergence part. So what they have increasingly found importance is the BRM body of knowledge has helped them to understand everybody to be at the same place, right? There is a common denomination to understand what do you mean by a strategic partner? What do you mean by value leakage? Some basic things that people have not thought about it in that facet, though they have done it, without knowing it. The vocabulary, the lexicon, the definition was very clear. And that gives much more excitement to work as a team. And I also understand from my own perspective, this is a good glue with all these functions, cross-functional business units joined together to make it happen. So it's an essentially driven by other organizations, not specific with IT, but with HR, vendor management, procurement, because one of them goes slow, then their entire race will get lost. So you need to all race at the same level to do that.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was conducting a session and someone wanted to have a sports analogy for that. So I said, okay, why don't you think about playing a cricket versus playing rugby for that matter, right? Or soccer is what some on it. So I think BRM is like playing soccer, or to a certain extent rugby, where the entire team carries the value ball to the goal post, and there's no fixed role over that. Whereas in cricket, your roles are very fixed. So I think probably that analogy also makes sense.
Sure.
Good. I think we can go long and long for these discussions. But as we said, that we have to make sure that we abide by certain time elements as well. And I'm straight away moving to the rapid fire. Yeah. Can we start the rapid fire, guys? Yeah. Sure. So I think the first rapid fire question that we have is that the business relationship management adoption can definitely play a very critical role in adopting the challenges that we discussed of digital transformation, right? Breaking the technology mindset and the time to market business driver. True or false? Malini?
I think definitely the BRM capability is one of the critical, enablers of business digital transformation, and as well as addressing all the other challenges that we have been talking about. However, I would like to say that, so I'm a practicing business relationship manager. I actually lead a team of business relationship managers, right? But that's not always common. So I find many organizations actually do not actually have a team or even a person dedicated to this role. So I would say it's more about the capability.
Yeah. All right. Good. Suresh, please, your viewpoint.
I think, yes, it's very important, but I think it's also important to get everybody to understand what we are trying to do. I normally rely on Simon Sinek's golden circle. Why are we doing certain things certain way? Because when you are inspired by a purpose, and we all as cross-functional teams are aligned with the goal or converge with the goal, then it becomes much more easier. So while I completely agree it is important, but we need to create the sense of urgency. We need to create why we have to achieve this as a part of capability. And each and everyone's role is important. No job is below dignity. So it has to be a collective consensus where we are actually achieving that. Then only it becomes sustainable, predictable, and we can all achieve that required success.
I do agree that that all roles do have a part to play in this. But in response to Avinash's question, I think the BRM role actually has a really critical part in this, because this is often the first indication to the rest of the organization that IT has a very serious intent to play differently, right?
I agree.
And in order for us to understand the why we are here, what we are here, and so on, this capability is actually a way for doing that.
I completely agree.
No, absolutely right. I think one key point is we have to adopt the business capability in the organization. There is definitely a lot of time and effort, and to a certain extent, focus we invested in adopting the BRM capability, right? And I think that linking of these business drivers or these business challenges with the adoption makes the entire business case easier, whether it's a business partner driven adoption or top down adoption, or an IT provider pushed adoption of BRM capability. Linking the adoption with these drivers definitely plays a very critical role, is what my point of view would be. Yeah. Good. Fantastic viewpoints. Okay. Second, whenever we meet a lot of people, I think one statement that they make is that BRM body of knowledge has been very recently published, and it's a very new body of knowledge. True or false? I think, do you concur with is it a myth or is it a fact? That BRM body of knowledge is a very recent body of knowledge.
So I'll probably take it up. No, it's been there for a quite long time, for 5 years now. But before that, let me give you a context. Now, I come from a service management world, and we had about ISO 20000 2011 version had BRM as an auditable process for you to get compliance, right? ITIL version 3 had business relationship management as part of service strategy. So there is an increasingly importance in the last few years where there is an importance of understanding BRM through the organization. So it's not that something that it already existed, but not in the purest form. But when you got exposed to BRM BOK, it has got a plethora of knowledge. So definitely not true. It has been for quite a long time. So over to you, Malini, in your perspective, how you have seen that particular part.
I would also say that that statement is false. And I believe that BRM body of knowledge has actually existed for a long time. So if you look at how the BRM institute has evolved, right? The institute itself has been in existence for over 5 years. But before that, there was actually a LinkedIn group with a fairly large membership, consisting of business relationship management practitioners. And that's because there was so much traction within that group. There was a move to create the institute and formalize the body of knowledge. and that BOK has actually come about very much from practice. It has been informed by practice. It has been driven by practitioners. So I would say it actually predates, the institute. It's actually been around for a very long time. And certainly I myself, even 10 years ago as a senior business analyst, I was shaping demand. I was actually looking at transition management. Although I was employed by IT, I wasn't actually just shipping out products. I was looking at value that is created and that can be harnessed by the organization. So I think, from a high level of abstraction, I would say it has been in existence for quite some time.
Absolutely. I think coming from a serviceman background myself, I think when we look at the entire IT service management space, Suresh, I think they have alluded to the role of BRM in the various processes going forward, right? Sometimes it's got more of a account manager role from a supplier relationship management perspective. I think the first time when I heard about the BRMI body of knowledge is in 2014, and I said, okay, let's look at what is the difference and how it kind of brings in something extra from the other best practices that we have. And I think what was a kind of a eureka moment for me personally as a practitioner and a consultant was that it kind of deep dives into a very specific niche field or domain, which is business relationship management. So if you look at the ITIL version 2, which came in 2001, it had 8 books. And one of the books was Business Perspective of IT, right? Which alluded to the business relationship. But because the 2 core books were called Service Support and Service Delivery, it kind of never got the prominence that it deserved.
Yeah.
Right. And the same thing, I think we look at ISO 20000 processes. There are relationship management processes where we specifically talk about business relationship management. So the way I see it, it's over a period of time, multiple progressive best practices have alluded to this body of knowledge at a very abstract layer. If I can say at a kind of a high level abstraction, they should be there. These are the important elements. But the how element of it was kind of slightly missing, where BRMI body of knowledge definitely provides a lot of details to kind of get it going. So I think that it has been there for almost more than 3 decades. But the depth that we have come across and the focus that we have come across is almost within the last decade or so based on my experience. So it's absolutely false. It's an old body of knowledge gaining a lot of prominence now within our region for sure, if I can say so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The last question, which is, I'm sure, I think this question will be close to everyone's heart, is that every organization, knowingly or unknowingly, are following some elements of BRM best practices documented in the BRM body of knowledge. True or false?
I would say it's true, Avinash. So as I was just explaining a minute ago, even 10 years ago, as a business analyst, I was already doing demand shaping, and value harvesting, transition management, etc., which are basic competencies identified in the BRM body of knowledge. I would say that that function probably until now has probably been sort of hidden or continues to sort of hide within a great variety of role titles. But I think it's we're moving to a situation increasingly where it's important to have dedicated roles for this. So you actually free up people's capacity to do strategic partnering. So otherwise, if IT has the intention of becoming a strategic partner, but you're only devoting resources for a very small portion of time, you can't achieve that. You can't just show up at a meeting and then say, I'm going to be a strategic partner. You actually need to nurture those relationships. So it becomes critical to devote people to that, to actually support them with the required training, to make those investments into strategic partnering.
Now, I'll agree as well, because today, if you look at a lot of organizations are very much tactical in nature. So they are still looking at service delivery, meeting contractual obligations, service level agreements, getting a CSAT score, net promoter score. It's very, very tactical in nature, very transaction oriented. To even think about strategic is a distant dream because we are on fire always. So I like what Malini said. You need to formalize a role as a BRM because then you are starting to focus as strategic one. It is not possible for you to think strategic when your trousers are on fire. So it's very important to be understand the ground reality. We all can aspire to be, monks, but if you are not be able to do the daily rituals on a regular basis, it's going to fail miserably. So until otherwise there is a formalized evangelizing of the role in the organizations, there's no way you can become strategic. We'll continue to do bits and pieces of it. It's not going to be sustainable on that.
Perfect. I think I agree to the two of you. In addition to what you mentioned, and if we look at the rapid fire question, I feel that in every organization, we have hidden BRMs, right? I think that's, and we might call them by different names or different designations, but some of these activities are followed, not in a coherent way because they don't know about it. I think typically if you look at an internal provider function, and I'm especially talking about IT as such, based on our experience as consultants, we come across that the CIO invariably plays the strategic BRM role, knowingly or unknowingly. Again, the point is that they have to make sure that they have healthy relationships and they have high business IQ. But there's no deliberation revolving around it. It's more kind of a, if I can use the word, it's kind of river flow kind of thing that we are flowing with the river itself. The moment we talk about tactical BRMs, then there are project managers, there are delivery managers who are kind of playing that role. Operational BRMs is played by incident managers to a certain extent. Again, the point of view that I have is that every organization has some inborn or in-house BRM capability when they are thinking of adopting BRM capability. It's very critical that they know and kind of map on the BRM capability and the role, who's playing that role, and pick up that person, and he becomes an internal evangelist of BRM and brings a lot of element of focus. The second element is positioning of the BRM. And I completely agree that the BRM is a much more strategic role. And when we look at the onset, having a dedicated role towards it kind of positions the BRM role that this is a relatively senior role focused on building strategic partnerships with the internal decision makers. And that kind of gets the ball rolling, if I can say so. Perfect. So again, to summarize the third point, all of us agree to that every organization, knowingly or unknowingly, is following the BRM best practice in their organization. Yeah, that was the rapid fire.
Yeah. So I think thanks everyone. I think we are almost close to that, but excellent discussions that could come across from all practitioners and stuff like that. We are going to give more episodes coming there, but for now, I wish you all a great day ahead. Thanks a lot, Malini and Avinash, for taking time on Saturday and then sharing your insights with us. We hope that we can contribute. As we said earlier, please comment when with new ideas or things that we need to kind of discuss, and we're going to come up with more episodes to do that. For people, have a great weekend, and we will all see you again in the next episode of BRM BrownBag. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.